Hi, I'm Meredith Keator, and I want to thank you for your interest in my Meridian Mastery Program. I do believe that this is the only program out there that not only covers meridians, but covers a lot of contemporary research and also discusses aspects around light refraction and geometry that really need to be considered when we're looking at what we are learning today in acupuncture and what the research from the past and that's coming up now can show us. So that's been a lot of my research for the last 25 years. And in my Fractal Anatomy and Geometry of Healing program that you may already be familiar with, it goes into a lot of detail about all of that research. That is my 25 years of research put together. In this Meridian Mastery program, we're going to go specifically into the meridians themselves, focus on that one system of the body and why and how it's so helpful for your own healing, or if you're a therapist, how much it really helps you accelerate your treatment results. If you haven't already seen the Fractal Anatomy and Geometry of Healing program, this program will stand on its own. But if you get both, it will definitely give you a kind of level and amplitude of education in this particular field of where the West and the East meet and what the connection is between the two. That will be available to you at a discount through the checkout section of the process. If you go through and you want to buy the Meridian Mastery program, you will have an ability to actually buy one or both levels of that program at a discount. So keep an eye out for that if you are going through the checkout process. Right now, I want to be able to go through the questions that are outlined in the landing page about this Meridian Mastery program, and I'm going to go through them one by one. So the first one is, what is a meridian and how can this knowledge help me? In acupuncture school, we're taught that a meridian is, it helps lubricate the body, but they're also really a pathology pathway. And what that means is it can really give an idea of the weather inside the body. And it allows an Eastern practitioner to be able, or somebody who's been trained in this way, to be able to really look at the body and understand what could have something going wrong with it. So for instance, we know in the West, if you have a heart attack, you will feel a pain down the inner side of your left arm, particularly. And that, interestingly, is exactly where the heart meridian is for the last 5,000 documented years of Chinese medicine. I don't know if the West has entirely figured out all the neurological connections. I know they hadn't a number of years ago. Perhaps they have by now. They just know that that actually happens, but they don't know that it's a meridian that has been standing there related to the heart for millennia. Another example, a client of mine has a really bad low-grade lung condition that's been building up over the years. Her arm is beginning to really go, and it's hard for her to lift, and the main pain is right down the lung meridian through the arm. So it gives you an idea of being able to actually look at what could possibly be happening in the body. It's so concise that I'm actually writing a book about tattoos, interestingly, which hopefully will be out in the next year, because tattoos are becoming so ubiquitous, and where people put them on their body and even what the symbol is can actually tell me a lot, not only because of meridians, but because I understand the fractal nature of the body. And I'll get into that in a moment. But we're going to be covering all that in the Meridian Mastery program. So it's not just about meridians. It's about fractals. It's about geometry. It's about light refraction. It's about older research and more contemporary research, and what all this means to your own health and healing. And if you're a therapist, how it can help you amplify your treatment results for clients. Another example from a therapeutic point of view is a client of mine had melanoma on his abdomen. I'd been working with this man for many, many years. And he had metastasis that started moving through the body from this melanoma on his abdomen. And well into his illness, I felt an area on his calf, and I could tell that that was also metastasis. So this alerted the doctors a good month or more in advance of the fact that metastasis had in fact traveled down to the calf. He thought it was just a tight muscle. Please don't be concerned that every time you have a tight muscle that it might be cancer, but it's a very different and specific feeling. And so this alerted the doctors to it, where they could do a biopsy and they could actually realize that it was indeed metastatic cancer. And it gave them a heads up to be able to do something in advance about that. So there's a lot of different ways that understanding, again, not only meridians, but fractals and how the body is set up in that way, I'll explain that in a moment, that it will really aid and abet your ability to read your own body, and certainly your ability to read other people's bodies if you're in a therapeutic practice of any kind, working on bodies. What is the difference really between Eastern and Western medicine, and why do they seem so different? Well, as I said in the video before, the East functions on the blueprint between the thought and the thing. Western medicine really focuses on the thing. It's great once something has happened, once a thing has happened. When clients come to me and they're like, I don't know what's going on, the doctors aren't finding anything, I say this is cause for celebration, because it means it hasn't turned into a thing yet. You don't really want a diagnosis. And prior to surgical intervention or pharmaceutical intervention that's extreme or anything of that nature, the medical specialty we have in the West is based on fixing those things when life is threatening, but it doesn't really allow them to offer anything much more than anti-inflammatories and painkillers prior to that. So the Eastern perspective is what fills that gap up in between. And we're at a really exciting time right now where the East and the West are really meeting a lot more in order to be able to learn from each other. And my research of the last 25 years, I'd like to think, is a really good contribution to that conversation. So because they look at things very differently, what's exciting now is that even, for instance, in the world of physics, that such as the work of Nassim Haramein and other physicists who are looking for the solution between the relativistic world and the quantum world, why they look different and what the overall connection is between the two, which is really the holy grail in physics. Once you lie the idea of fractals and its geometric structuring of patterning, which is a really ancient way of looking at the body. What we call fractals was an old way of always looking at the body that we could call pattern thinking. When you overlay that, all of a sudden, things that looked like they were very different from one another suddenly find a unification. This is exactly what I found in the body in relation to Eastern and Western medicine. So there's this fascinating way to actually really understand through meridians, through fractals, through body reading, that there are geometric structures to the frequencies of not only the nervous system, but I believe light refraction, different things of that nature. And I go through those specifics in the program. Again, in the Fractal Anatomy and Geometry of Healing program, there's a lot of extensive information in there about that too. So you can combine the two, have a chance to actually read all of that information prior to the launch of the live program in Meridian Mastery that will be starting in February of 22. So that will be the one time anyway. I'm not sure if I'm going to always be doing them live, but I'm definitely going to do the first one live. And then recordings will be afterwards for either people who join that program or people who later buy the program. And maybe I'll do live ones later on, but I'm not sure. And I know that definitely for the first one, we're going to dive in together live where you can ask questions and get some really direct response from me in relation to what's going on with your particular personal issue or even therapeutically. So what we have happening now is a pre-launch special where you get a discount on the Meridian Mastery program. That's available to you till the end of 2021. And then in February of 22, we're going to dive in together live, be part of all of those recordings for future people who want to work with the program. And if you get the Fractal Anatomy and Geometry of Healing program, you're going to have a lot of time between now and February to actually go through that and get as much understanding about this very extensive and exciting field before we even launch into Meridians. So the Meridian program stands on its own. You don't have to know the Fractal Anatomy and Geometry of Healing. You'll get a lot out of it, but you're probably going to want to feel like, I really want that information. So you might want to take advantage of it now while you have that discount available to you. How can this help me before I experience any illness? It's a really good question. So when we have different things happening in the body and you know how to read your body, it gives us a better window into being able to actually understand if, let's say, an organ system or part of your body is wavering a little bit, needing a little bit more attention. The body, in Western medicine, we know that there are aspects of the body that mirror all other parts of the body, like the homunculus has an entire body inside of it that pertains to all parts of the body. We know from the East that the eye or the ear or the foot all have a mirror to the rest of the body, which is why there's auricular acupuncture or reflexology or what have you. And so there are different ways that we're understanding that parts of the body actually mirror the rest of the body. And it would stand to reason that it's not just certain parts of the body, but that all parts of the body would be mirroring all parts of the body. It wouldn't be selective that way. And that's what the body has shown me. So we're going to go into understanding more about what that fractal nature is. And once you understand that, you can really help yourself by knowing what to work on and how to read. So I'm going to explain that like this. The body has an incredible wisdom to not let any one area get overloaded for as long as possible, to keep you going for as long as possible. And what it does, kind of like a hall of mirrors, is anywhere where there's a distortion, it will be lit up in all of the different areas. When you know how to read the different areas, when you know where they are, and of course, this is an extensive science, so it's not like I've got it all down, but there's a lot of information to give you a really good idea of how to start raising your sensory awareness, understanding intellectually where these areas are. And that helps you read the weather of your own body prior to something happening. For instance, spoke to my accountant once year. I was like, 1 year, and I was saying, how have you been for the last year? And he said, oh, it was horrible. I woke up in the middle of the night and had this gallbladder attack, and I went to the hospital, and they could barely operate because if they went in, the whole gallbladder was going to explode. It was this really crisis situation. I said, my God, what did you feel anything before that? And he said, nope, not a thing. Now that's the difference between having an idea that something's wrong so that you can do something about it, or just not having any idea and having it explode and then having to give your empowerment of what you can do over entirely to anybody else. It's important that we have health facilitators on both the Western and alternative practices in order to be able to help. And what's more empowering is when you understand them yourself. So being able to know, for instance, this is why we're going to go into a stretch a little bit in the program too, how to work with your own body and how you can actually pinpoint and have an idea of what things are doing what, where. As far as meridians go, it allows you to really understand, oh, wow, look, if there's this, is there another lung thing coming up? Where can I look for them? What can I do to open areas? And as you watch different air, like my thumb's really been bothering me. It's very lung related. I've got some lung stuff, and I was getting quite concerned. And I was thinking, wow, are my lungs really getting worse? What's happening? And then as these clear up, I know, okay, there was something moving through. I've been doing some good stuff. It's probably been clearing. It gives you a heads up. It gives you an ability to read the weather like a sailor would read the heavens and the earth and the water and know what's coming. That's really helpful. How can this help me when I'm moving through an illness? In the same way, when you actually have an illness, being able to slowly open up these other areas. If there's one area that's really congested, it's mirrored everywhere, but you can help release these other spaces that aren't right in the center of where the congestion is. You're giving that congestion space to spread out and actually relieve some steam, essentially. And that helps alleviate where the particular load is. So we're all going to die of something, and this is just more a question of giving you some empowerment tools in order for you to be able to help yourself or read bodies of clients even better when they walk in your room and when you put your hands on them. Oh, next question. How can this help me if I'm a therapist who works with bodies? Well, I really like when a person walks into the room that I can already read a fair bit about what's going on with them because of my training, because of this information that I've been putting out on fractals and geometry and now in the Meridian Mastery Program. And because the body is fractal, I can feel their calves and I can have a really good idea about what I'm going to find in the interior of the body when I start working through their torsos. It allows me to read the body better. When I can read the body better and understand where the internal geometry is, and what that means is that there are planes of energy moving through the body that create intersection points. This is what the body has taught me. And when you have a shoulder pain, but you're not just thinking on the shoulder, but you're thinking of exactly where the intersection point of a lot of activity is, and you can touch and feel instead of on the surface, the nervous system speaks to you. And the body will jump and release. And so you've allowed that much more tension to release, that much more blood and nutrients to release, the more superficial places that are holding because they're being pulled to release. And that, of course, translates to pain relief for your clients and returning clients. So that's how that works in a nutshell. What does geometry have to do with the meridian system? So the Chinese have said for thousands of years that the 10,000 diseases arise from the hara. And this means that every organ system is actually where illness begins. But it's not just illness, it's torque in the body. It's where things just slowly start to build up through the iceberg before we hit pain, before we hit illness. And what the body, and with all this research with fractals and geometry, has taught me that there's a very extensive amount of theory in that program available to understand why there are certain areas within the body that follow a geometric patterning and that allow us to look at planes moving through and how to actually release them. Again, to fully understand all of it, it's going to be in the Fractal Anatomy and Geometry of Healing program. We're going to go through a lot of it in the Meridian Mastery program so that you have a better idea of how to actually unlock them and work with meridians that are like a web through your body and not just lines on top. What are fractals and how on earth do they help me understand my body and health processes? I think I did cover that pretty much already. Fractal, a pattern that repeats itself in different iterations and different scales. Your body is like a kaleidoscope of seeing everything because the wisdom of your body is sharing load everywhere. Understanding that your body does that, how to communicate with it in order to learn from it directly and be able to affect change is the key in using fractal knowledge on a biological level. What does it mean when we say a meridian is affected? Doesn't mean that the organ is in trouble. Not necessarily at all. You definitely just get an idea of what's happening in the body. This is why I'm writing this book on tattoos and Eastern diagnosis, because where people are putting tattoos and what the symbols are even showing me where issues are. One year, I love talking to people who have tattoos. It's kind of the only party trick I have, really. I saw somebody with a whole band around the lung section on their leg, and we were having a chat, and I said, do you have any lung condition or any lung things going on? And she said, no, I don't have any lung conditions at all. I'm perfectly fine. But meanwhile, her shoulders were up around her ears, and she couldn't really breathe very well. And so as a therapist, I would think, okay, we've got some lung things that are building up. That doesn't mean that her lungs are damaged. It doesn't mean she has cancer, but it gives us a way to read the weather before we get there. What can I expect to learn from this program? So we're going to go through the classical meridian information, the things that have been handed down to us for thousands of years in a more linear format. But we're also going to be going over research that has been brought from the West in relation to that, Japanese research, understanding why do the meridians move in jags? That's not being discussed. And there's actually some great Japanese research that explains exactly why, and also supports the idea of planes of energy moving through the body. We're looking at things very linearly and very in concrete, in compartmentalized spaces. But when we really start to open and expand our view of the body, it really changes the game. And this more contemporary research definitely points in the direction of that. So there's a lot of exciting things that we can learn that I didn't have a chance to go into in the Meridian section of the Fractal Anatomy and Geometry of Healing that we're going to go through now. We're also going to go through some stretches. I come from a lineage called somatic stretch from my grandfather to my mother to me. These classes are online every week. You can go to geometryofhealing.com. I run them all by donation since COVID started so that anyone can come and stretch, work with their own bodies, work with their own health, and learn along the way without paying if they can't pay anything. So they're all run by donations. The donations definitely keep me teaching and help so many people able to access the work who otherwise can't pay at all. So we're going to go into some somatic stretch work and understand how to actually apply every meridian that we go through in the body. We're also going to have video that allows you to understand where the meridian runs in the body. I've got this funky little meridian suit that I drew up a long time ago. We're going to get a body into it. And I'm going to show you exactly where meridians lie on the body and how to actually work them. There are certain points in acupuncture we don't need to know, but there are certain points along meridians that will give you a really great start if you're just working your own body or if you're working on somebody else, to know exactly where to look for the best point in hands-on work to actually unlock the meridian and actually relate also more to the core of the body rather than just the line that you're thinking about in your head. The reason how you're thinking is so different and makes such a difference is because it's your nervous system talking to the person's nervous system talking to itself. So when I know I'm not just thinking here, but I'm going into here, the body responds. And that's where all the magic is. And that's what I'm teaching you to do and see. Understand it, feel it, access it, think it, and it changes. There's also this really funky thing that I love to do that I started doing when I was teaching this program live in actual rooms with actual people. And what we do is we sit around, and we're going to do this live And it will also be recorded, the program, but it's so much fun to actually share together online. So we put on some really great Baroque music, something that gets the left and the right brains actually functioning together. And I'm going to be reading you information from different sources that are broken down. And you're just going to listen and draw. You're going to pull out pads of paper and pencil and colors. And don't be an artist at all. It's totally not the point. I want you to just doodle while I'm talking, while the music's going on. And a picture comes out that actually has information that you've absorbed and coded into it. So when you have your Meridian manual and you want to go back to it and you're reading your technical notes and you're seeing the video of exactly where you should be working, you've also got this picture that gives you an amalgamation of all the information you've actually drawn together that will stimulate your brain in different ways. One of my favorite ways of teaching and how I set up this other fractal anatomy and geometry of healing program is to use all different parts of how people actually think and work in learning. So visual, mental, left brain, right brain, kinesthetic, all these different kinds of ways to actually absorb information. And I feel that as a teacher, one of the best skills I have is taking large bits of information without degrading them, making them distillable into something and giving it to people in short, condensed, direct ways that work with all different kinds of learning so that anyone can absorb a lot of information. So whether you're a beginner or whether you're advanced, you're going to learn something new in all of this, and we're just going to have a great time. Anything else? You can expect how to understand not only your body better, but how to even use the stretch technique, and then come to the classes online if you want anytime. I always leave recordings up there too, so you can go now and check out one of the stretch classes. I always leave them up and then rotate. There's a membership for people who want to be able to download the last 8 classes or see them anytime. So there's a lot of things available to you on my website at geometryofhealing.com. If you go to online stretch classes, you'll get information about that. And that will help you really know how to help yourself when you have a neck pain, a shoulder pain, a back pain, a knee pain, an ankle pain, and how to work with yourself. So even when I teach live, I've had people call and say, I want to come to class, but my back is so spasmed and I just don't know if it would be a good idea. And I say, no, come. And so they come and lie down on the ground, and we go through just really gentle movements and make these connections in the body. And they jump up and say, I can't believe how much better I feel. And people also say, how did I move so little and shift so much? So we're going to be learning that. We're going to be taking you deeply into your body, into your own healing. We're going to be learning from a lot of different sources, a lot of different angles and perspectives of what we've known in the past, what we know now, and what it is that you can do for yourself today and in the future. Did I cover everything? Yeah. If you go to checkout, you can get the Fractal Anatomy program at a 20% discount just throughout this period towards the end of December if you're buying the Meridian Mastery program. So do write me if you have any questions. It's sands, like the beach, SANDS @templebody.com. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions for you. And I really look forward to diving in together and having some real community interaction where we can all learn from one another, because of course it's an ongoing process. And I want to thank you very much for your trust in my work, my research, and for a beautiful opportunity to be able to share it with so many in this kind of format. And I want to thank you particularly for bringing your body and breath to the world, however you do it. We really are in a world where the more we heal ourselves, the more we heal our communities, our environment, and therefore the planet. So thanks for playing, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Many blessings.